So in this part of the session, I'm going to talk about the state of optimal functioning. Now, each human possesses the power to bring about peak performance. We can all do that. And it's a state that actually comes from within as opposed to from without. A lot of athletes and people focuses on the things that's around them to bring about that high performance or peak performance that they are looking for, where instead it's really something that's already inside of you. And during the leading up to the 1988 Olympics at the High Performance Soviet Institute, what they did some experiments on the individuals and on the athletes to find out and to prove exactly that it's really something that comes from within. And what they did is they asked the athletes to record what we would call their greatest state of optimal functioning or their greatest state of performance. And they wanted them to verbalize and explain exactly what were all of the sensations that accompanied that particular incident. They wanted the athletes exactly to verbalize what it is that they saw, what it is that they felt, what did they hear. So all of their senses and how they would experience an event or an experience, they wanted them to verbalize that and documented that. And they went through hundreds of, I almost want to say patient data, but they went through hundreds of athlete data. And one of the single most important things that they found from nearly all of the athletes was most of them, nearly all of them, reported what we would call a special feeling of effortlessness. You know, it's that point where everything just seemed to happen with unusual ease and precision. Everything just fall into place. And when Victor Senev, who after establishing his world record in triple jump, when he was asked about it, he said he couldn't believe the results. He was not even trying hard enough, and it seemed like everything just came so easy for him. He was not putting in any effort at all. And one of the explanations that they had was the fact that the athletes were completely immersed and absorbed in their activity. And go back to our first session where I speak about that, where I speak about being completely absorbed by the experience. And what we would call in coaching terms or in psychological terms, embody the entire experience. When you look at these athletes, they were wholeheartedly in it, without any self-doubt, without any hesitation. It's like they ran literally on autopilot. They knew exactly what they needed to do, and they went for it without any real effort. So they were like totally possessed by the feeling of rightness and sureness. They knew where they were heading. And you know, it's like a child when they are absorbed in their imagination. Exactly the same thing. The first few minutes when a child plays, they know what's going on, but you know, halfway through their, I don't know, war game or their tea party, they are just completely immersed in that experience, and they can reenact anything. They don't care what other people are thinking. And the state of optimal performance consists of three characteristics. It's physical, it's emotional, and it's mental. Just one back. So I'm going to explain it to you from physical backwards to emotional, and then we're going to get to the mental side of it. The physical sensations that athletes feel differ greatly between, I mean, everybody might feel something different. Some might feel tingling sensation. It's like what you feel physically in your body. That's exactly those sensations. Some might feel emptiness in the pit of the stomach. Some might feel anxious. Some might feel nauseous. Some might feel they have a lump in their throat. And even sometimes when you look at weightlifters, you can see from their body and from how they approach the bar and how they set up for that lift, that there's just something about their physical state that tells you they're not going to make that lift. And even if you look at an athlete, let's say, for example, a pole vault athlete, or any, I'm sure you would have seen it if you watch people in your own sport. the moment they set up and the moment they get ready for the event, it's like you can just see from their whole posture and how their body expresses them, how they express themselves through their body, that they either going to have a great race or they're going to have a terrible race. And most of the experienced athletes are familiar with their physical cues. By now, if you've been in your sport for very long, you should be aware by now what is your physical cues. If you're unsure what that is, if you're unsure whether that physical cue is a negative or a positive for you, because it can be so such a negative that it actually impacts your performance, keep a journal and write down your experiences around every single event. And even now, where there's not a lot of events going on, but even now around your training, write down exactly the type of training you're doing, how you feel, and things like that, because that should give you a good indication as to what is those physical cues for you. And then we get to the emotions. Again, athletes can feel a wide range of different emotions or positive emotions when they are in their optimal state of performance or optimal state of functioning. You might even get athletes that find it useful to provoke negative emotions like anger and rage. I mean, when they're a little bit more angry, they get all pumped up and they have a great performance. I mean, we all know Bakkies Botha was famous for his subtle gestures towards his opponents on the field, right? To aggravate them a little bit, right? British swimmer Steve Holland said he was in his room and he once tapped on the aquarium of his on the glass outside on his fish aquarium, and he watched as the fish just scattered all over the place. And he was thinking by himself and asking himself, what if, while I was swimming, imagine that I'm being chased by a shark? Now, that's a little bit extreme, but if you can live with that, go for it. He tried it and he broke 2 world records. So every strong emotion causes a complex of chemical reactions in the body. And we saw that also, again, I discussed that in detail in the first workshop of how that loop works. And the Soviets have found that this increased excitability shows up in your muscles. That's why people have a better performance. And that is what was causing these powerful movements in all of these athletes. Anything that shakes up your mind strong enough possesses the power to break down boundaries of habitual thought patterns, the things that we subconsciously just do because it's an habit. And when that energy can be released, it will blow your mind in terms of what it is that you're able to do. Interestingly, and we all know that, right, that the increase in performance is also related to a level of anxiety you might feel, right? If you think back about a time where you were moderately anxious, and that moderate might mean something different for every athlete, but at a time where you felt moderately anxious and you actually had a good performance, many coaches and athletes think anxiety is a bad thing and impact performance. So what do? They try to calm their athlete down before the event. If you have no anxiety whatsoever, completely nothing, you just like chilled, walk on the field and, just whatever, you become lethargic. It's impossible for you to be focused and have all of that energy in your muscles and in your mind. And while the Western coaches were actually trying to calm these athletes down, the Soviets worked on inducing what we would call an optimal level of anxiety. It's that level of anxiety where you know you can perform at your best. Now, there can be a level of anxiety above that can negatively impact your performance. And obviously a level of anxiety below that's not going to give you an optimal level of performance. Now, according to Dr. Alexeyev from the Russian Institute, it's a fairly easy way for you to find out where is that optimum level of anxiety. And what you do, let's say you are a runner, 1,000-meter runner. What you want to do is you want to count your pulse 3 minutes before your race. And you want to do that for at least 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 races where you run 1,000 meters. And then what you want to evaluate is what were your pulse, what were your heart rate versus what were your time for the 1,000 meters. And then you will be able to see where you had your best performance and what were your heart rate when you had that best performance. Now, what do you do if, let's say, you have a heart rate of, let's say, 85? That gave you your best result so far. What do you do if you find that 3 minutes before the time your heart rate is like 75? You do something to get your heart rate up, because that will increase that. It's the same physical reaction that's going to happen in your body, and it will increase that anxiety level to that optimal level of anxiety that you're looking for. And this is good information to keep track of as you do all of your races, because you're going to really be able to dial into that place where you have that optimal state of performance. The last part, or the last pillar, should I say, or characteristic of optimal state of performance is your mental well-being or your mental state. You can be in the best physical shape, filled with the best competitive spirit, and yet fail miserably. You have to have the right thoughts. And I want to encourage you, go back to the first session, listen to that session where I've explained how your thoughts contribute to your behavior, your emotions, then to your behavior, and how that eventually determine your identity. Every performance has two components. There's the goal and the means. And people always ask the question, if I'm in my race, if I'm busy, what do I focus on? And you should always focus on the means. Always. You will automatically reach your goal when you focus on the means. And this even goes for anything in life. Focus on the process, divorce the result. You cannot pay attention to do things at the same time. It's almost impossible. Any attention that you put on the goal detracts you from the attention and the focus you want to put on the means, the process that you are busy with. And that is the part that is important. You will get to your goal eventually. In our next video, I'll touch on the section about identifying with your winning self. So I'll see you there. Bye.